Perfect, perfect. All right, guys, welcome to Be the Market Expert. And as always, we're going to start with Housing Wire. And what we're going to look at is rear view facing data. This is data that came out on Friday. And so the title, as we look at this thing, it says, will mortgage rates keep heading lower? And if so, we should see purchase applications grow, right? And we know this, and we know everything that is going on is absolutely 100% due to interest rates and affordability, especially here in Colorado, right? When we start thinking about our average price point, being like $580,000, and the typical American being able to purchase a home, affordability is an issue. And so as mortgage rates go down, we're going to see purchase application data go up. We are going to see more people purchase houses. And this is very real. And like this is one of the things that we are absolutely going to be keeping our eyes on. So it says we survived jobs week and the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell talking to Congress with mortgage rates ending the week below 7%. But will mortgage rates keep heading lower? If so, what will the inventory levels look like, right? And so there was something that happened yesterday, and we'll talk about it when we're going to talk about the CPI. And as we're going through, there's definitely a lot of things happening. So we're not going to talk about the 10-year yield, but we do know there is a direct correlation, right? We know that as it's more advantageous for people to put into the yield, we see interest rates change, and as it's more or it's less advantageous, we see them go the other way. But we're not going to dive into the 10-year yield. Let's talk about this purchase application data. And so it says as mortgage rates rose from 6.63 to 7.16 earlier this year, we had 5 straight weeks of negative purchase application data, right? And so that is your consumers raising their hand, talking to a lender, saying that they may be interested in purchasing a house this year. We actually saw decrease 5 straight weeks of purchase application data going down and down and down. And then it says, however, last week that all changed with rates going lower. We saw 11% week to week growth. And so, guys, as we look at this thing, like it's very hard to tell. It's kind of funny. Like this is actually February. And then like here we are. So like it actually starts going back up and it's kind of hard to stay on this line, but that's what we saw. And so this is rear view facing data again. We actually saw your consumers raise their hand and they said, you know what? I'd be interested to know how much of a house I qualified for and at what monthly uh, mortgage rate that would look like. Since November 2023, we've had 9 positive and 5 negative purchase application prints after making holiday adjustments. And again, right, real estate, it's seasonal. And I know that we've had some years where the seasonality really wasn't there, but in all reality, we are in a very, very seasonal industry, especially here in Colorado, right? And any industry in Colorado is very seasonal because we do go through winters and people go hibernate. And so we had, winter and holidays and everything happening. We saw a lot of people put everything on pause. They were like, no, we're going to enjoy our time. It's too cold. I got, friends, family, loved ones, whatever. And so we start seeing things slow down. And that's very, very normal. So we adjust for a lot of those different things. However, and this is good news, with rates being what they are, we're seeing the hibernation thaw off. At least we did last week. And so these are some of the things that we need to keep in mind. Like, are we making sure that we're reaching out to our entire database and going through and making sure that our database is 100% in the know of what is going on as we're going through and we're communicating. And so as we're looking at this thing, it says this is a carbon copy of what happened in 2023 when rates went higher. However, we worked from a lower bar in home sales last year. Moving the needle doesn't take much since we all know we have buyers ready to go and homes are at record lows. And so we're seeing this as well, right? We're seeing some of the prices, depending on what market that we're playing in, we are seeing the home prices are a little bit lower because there isn't as many people going out and rushing these frenzies. And with interest rates what they are, we're actually seeing home prices come down a little bit. Like we're not seeing anything astronomical, Guys, this is great information. Like, this is the one thing that if we're taking anything away, we're seeing people comfortable at this north of 6% data line. And we need to be making sure that we're reaching out and having conversations with our people. So then we look at weekly housing data. So weekly housing data, weekly inventory changes from March 1st through the 8th. Inventory rose from 498,000 to 500,000 nationwide, guys. Like, this is good. Like, more houses are hitting the market. I think what we're seeing on top of the seasonality piece, we're actually seeing people being like, you know what, maybe the Fed isn't really going to drop rates to, just north of 5% into the low sixes. Maybe this is truly the reality that we're living in, and people are accepting that reality. So this is good. Like, we absolutely want to see more homes hit the market. And it says, if we were to look at this same time last year, guys, there was only 413,000 homes on the market. So we have 87,000 more homes nationwide on the market this or last week than we had this time last year. So all-time inventory bottom in 2022 was 240,000. Thank God we're not there. And we absolutely have some room to grow at 570,000 was the peak of 2023. So as we're looking at this stuff, it's looking good. Purchase application data going up. More homes are hitting the market because, again, seasonality, and people are just, I think, coming to the realization that rates are not going to drop as low as we hope they were going to drop. And then it says, for context, back in 2015, we almost had 1 million homes on the market, right? And everything that we're doing, everything that we're playing with, we want pre-pandemic levels. We want to see 2019 and before data all day long, because that was a normal market pre-COVID, post-COVID, right? Like, before a bunch of weird stuff started happening, that was about the normal baseline that we could play from is 2019 data. So as we're looking at this thing, obviously we're going up. This is good. This is absolutely a good thing that we want to see. And then for context, if we were to look at this thing, this is last week's data over the past several years. And so 59,000 homes, 50,000 in 2023, 59,000 in 2022. We are heading in the right direction. More homes is good for everybody. This is, we start seeing more homes, and with interest rates being what they are, we're actually seeing more discerning buyers, right? We're seeing our buyers going through and they're being pickier. This is not 2021 when interest rates were at 3% and these buyers would go out and they would do anything they could for a house. No, like, at this point, they're actually going through and they're saying, you know what? Based off of, interest rates and inventory and what's out there, I'm going to put everything on pause. The more inventory that we see hit the market with the interest rates being what they are, people still want to be homeowners. And they're going to go through, and as we're seeing more stuff hit the market, there's going to be more things that are going to catch their eye, and they're going to get off the sidelines and they will start buying more houses. That's what we're going to see this year. Price cut percentages, like, as we look at this thing, we're at 30%. 2024 data, 30.5% nationwide price cuts. 2023 was about the same. 2022 was 16.7%. And again, like, we saw that, like, the beginning of the year is fairly normal. The end of the year when interest rates started going up. So that's what has skewed this number. This is truly an interest rate number. We saw less buyers jumping off the sidelines because interest rates were going up. And so we saw more price cuts happening. That's what's driving these numbers. So here it is in a data line, and it says a week ahead. So this is talking about this week right now, because again, this is rear view facing data. And it's like, hey, we're going to go and see what the CPI does. All right, so let's talk about the CPI real quick. We're talking about the Consumer Price Index. And so the CPI reflects spending patterns of two groups, right? We have the urban and we have the suburban. It's based off of, the wage earners, and it's going through and it's seeing what the cost of goods and services are. All right, so that's the CPI data. So this is very, very important, because this is what's driving inflation. Okay, like, these are the numbers that tie into what's driving inflation. Is really just we're spending a lot of money, and so people are just raising everything, and then the cost of goods goes up, and then people have to make more money, so then they start paying people more money, and to pay people more money, the cost of goods has to go up again, right? It's a vicious cycle. And so if we're talking about CPI data and we were to look at this thing, here it is. So here's February, the CPI report. The consumer price index rose again. And guys, this is not good. All right. Like this is not what we want to see. And what this is saying is this is saying that inflation's not under control yet. It's saying that the prices for goods and services is still going up. And this is with our Fed chair, Jerome Powell, right? So this is, if we want to blame anyone, it's this guy right here. It's Jerome Powell. And with what's going on, the way that he wants to curb inflation is to make sure that the cost of money stays high. Okay. So that's what he's doing. So he's going through, and that's why interest rates are where they are, is because Powell does not want people to go out and spend money. And so what he's doing is he's saying, okay, cool. So the cost of money is going to cost everyone a lot more now. And so that's why we've been in this like housing recession, right? And so guys, we are in a housing recession. Like if we were to look, less houses are being sold, right? We are in a housing recession. We've been in it for, months and months and months at this point. And so this, if we were to look at this thing, this is why, is because if we were to go through this consumer price in February was up 3.2% from a year earlier and up from 3.1 in January, according to the data released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on Tuesday. All right. So it's increased, and it's not astronomical, but it's still going up. All right. And so what the Fed wants to do is the Fed has a goal, and they want to hit this goal, right? It says, moving back to the target 2%. It's like that's their goal. Here we are, right? We're at this north of 3%. They want us down to 2%. And so as we're going and we're looking at these things, it says shelter and gasoline accounted for 60% of the monthly increase, which is tied to this rise. All right, so we're talking about everything that is going into housing. All right, we're talking about how much it costs to build a house, all these different things. We're talking about rent. We're talking about anything shelter related, and we're talking about gas, guys. Right? You can't get around anything without talking about how high gas prices are, and we all feel it when we get to the pump, right? Like it's very, very real. And again, this is not good for our industry because, I mean, we all have these credit cards, right? I was going to pull out my credit card, but we all have credit cards. And I think a lot of people think that not necessarily free money, but it's something that like, oh, I'll just get to it later. I'll make a monthly payment and I'll do it. And people just don't think about putting things on credit card. They don't think about their Amazon purchases. They don't think about any of this stuff. And it's just little dollars and they keep spending and they keep spending and they keep spending it. Well, that's making all this go up, right? Like all these different things with the CPI is driving it up because people keep spending, prices keep going up, people keep spending, prices keep going up, and it's a vicious cycle. Well, we've looked at some of these monthly payments with the mortgage rates, and this is why like we are in a recession in our industry because like people aren't rushing out and be like, oh, cool, $4,000 a month. That's super exciting to me. Like I'm totally comfortable doing that. First, they have to qualify for it. And secondly, they have to go through and they have to make some decisions like, am I going to cut anything out of my life to make this financial commitment for the next 30 years? Even with the date the rate, marry the house philosophy that a lot of agents were putting out there, right? About like refis, the mortgage rates are going to drop, which they haven't dropped. I can't even imagine the conversations that people are having to have with their clients at this point if they were pushing that message. So as we're going through, guys, like this is something that we need to keep our eyes on because the way that this current Fed chair wants to drive down inflation is to keep the cost of money more expensive. So let's look at some things, right? So let's go in here and let's look at this year. So we're looking at this year's data, and this is the mortgage rates. And so we got conforming in the blue, we have FHA in the purple, right? Those are the two that I think that we like to look at. So as we're going through here, we see 6.6% is this line item right here, and we got 6.5, which is this line item right here. As we're going in and we're looking at this thing, right? We were watching this the last couple of weeks, and we're like, oh, this is not good news. And this is why we are in this housing recession. As we see this keep going up and up and up, and our consumers, right? Our buyers are like, well, hey, I can't afford this house, or maybe I can't afford the house, but the house isn't worth it with the inventory that's on the market. Like, I'm going to stay away from it. And then the other thing that we have is we have sellers, right? We have to keep in mind that most sellers become buyers. And so as this number is going up and up and up, our sellers somewhere in this area right here, they're like, I'm not going to put my house on the market because if rates keep going up, what am I going to afford once I sell my house? So this has created a lot of doubt, right? Like as we're looking at this line just increasing, this is a lot of doubt for both buyers and sellers because again, traditionally speaking, sellers become, well, this got kind of cool, right? So we're looking February 26th and they're going down. And again, I think a lot of the reasons why it's going down is because the Fed hasn't had any knee-jerk reactions lately and said, we're going to raise rates, right? I think that's what we're seeing. They're saying we're not going to have any rate cuts, but we're also not raising rates. And I think that's why we're seeing this go down a little bit. And we're also seeing the purchase application data go up, is that people are not afraid that the Fed is going to do a price increase, which is going to price them out again. So this is great news. Like this is what we want to see. And this is 1 year's data, right? We're talking about January 1st, is actually January 2nd, because this was a holiday. And we're looking through, and yes, it was pretty stable. Then we had this pretty big dip, and then it's been on the rise, but we're going back down. And what is going to control this line is truly what Powell says. Whatever Jerome Powell says, he gets on the on an interview, and whatever he says is what is going to manipulate this line right here. If he says, hey, things are getting out of control, we might have to start raising rates, this line will automatically start going up, right? Like it will start going up. And as long as he's not saying anything about raising rates, we will continuously see this thing go down to a certain point, right? Like this thing could go all the way down, to somewhere around the 6%. I don't think we're going to see sub 5. And really, like we're at 6.5 for FHA and 6.7 for conforming. But it is all predicated on what the Fed says. All right. So let's look at this, right? So I went through, and we're still going to talk about mortgage rates. So I just went on to one of our websites, and it's my website, and you guys all have your own, being a part of KW, right? We're looking at this thing, and I found this $480,000 house over in the Water Towers, right? So we're looking in historic Old Town Arvada, and we're looking at a condo, right? This is a condo. It's unit 210. You can see they put this nice little arrow for us, so we know that this is their balcony. So we're looking at this thing, guys, and so let's take this into context. This is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square foot home. All right. So this is what we're looking at. We are looking at a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,100 square foot condo with a great view of, I'm sure, another house and maybe whatever. I think this is the water tower. It's not looking at the water tower. So we look at this thing, and let's go straight down to our mortgage calculator. All right. So $480,000. Guys, if we're looking at this and we're putting $480,000 purchase price, 20% down. So 20% down, that's $96,000. And I want you to think of most buyers on a $480,000 price point. Like all of us in our heads, we're probably thinking like first-time home buyer. Well, how many first-time home buyers do we think that are out there that have $100,000 down payment? So if we're looking at this thing, it's principal interest, $2,364. Their home insurance for $125. There is HOA of $535 that it's associated with this thing. And there's no mortgage insurance because we put 20% down. Guys, it's 6.25%. And let's just double check that, because I actually think it's a little bit higher. This is conventional. So let's go look at conventional. There's our 30-year conforming. It's actually 6.7. So let's even just change the numbers. So let's go 6.7%. And guys, if we're talking about 6.7%, that is a well-qualified borrower, right? That is someone with great credit history. They have a good job. They have this 20% down. And so at 6.7%, their monthly payment is $3,138 a month for a $480,000 condo. And so this is truly where we're at right now. And these are the conversations that we need to be having. So as we're going through and we're seeing purchase application data go up, great. We're seeing more homes hit the market. This is where our buyers are being more discerning, especially here in Colorado. We have very frustrated money. Like our money does not go as far as it does in other states. Like I think if we were to look, I saw something that I think it said the Gulf states right now, we're seeing a couple states that are pre-pandemic levels for inventory, which we're not there yet. Like the Midwest, like we're nowhere near there. And but there are certain states that are getting closer and closer to more and more inventory on the market. Well, let's check this out, right? So we're looking at this. There's $3,100 as our monthly payment. Well, let's say this. Let's say that I don't have 20% down, right? I don't have 100K. So let's go 10%, right? Maybe I have 48,000. Guys, look what this thing just did. At 6.7% interest, this took our monthly payment to $3,700. $3,700 a month because it put in this mortgage insurance premium right here, right? So $252 a month is what it added for MIP. Yeah, with the HOA. Well, that HOA is 535, not right. So it gets higher. Yeah, right. As we're looking at this thing, $3,700. And if we were to go, let's go put 20% down. So 37 down to 31. Yeah. So a dramatic increase. And it really has to do with this MIP. And this is the very real world, especially if they're talking about a $480,000 price point. This is first time home buyer territory, right? And as we're looking at this thing, first time home buyer territory, think about how many people have $3,700 a month. Let's just do some, I'm going to say quick math. I'm still going to put it through a calculator. 3,700 times 12, guys, that's $44,000 a year. $44,000 a year is what this person is going to be paying just for housing alone. Lala, I saw you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, Charles, sorry. Was that the monthly and is the HOA is included or the 500 on top of the
No,
monthly
that's
pay?
included. That's
Okay,
included in this. Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. So it's adding all this. Is adding the $2,700 principal and interest. It's adding in the insurance. What it's not adding in is the property tax, right? So we do know that they're going to have to divide that over by 12. It's adding the HOA, it's adding the MIP. So yeah, it's adding all that. So guys, when we start thinking about this, right? So we go 3,700 times 12, that gives us $44,400. If we're thinking that like most people, and just think about this, think about the people that are in your world, think about what's ever going on, you're talking about, let's talk about someone that's earning $100,000 a year. Someone earning $100,000 a year, they're left with $55,000 left after housing for $480,000 home. And be thinking about that. Think about what your car payment is. Think about what your phone bill is. Think about, your Hulu, your Netflix, like everything else that you have, food. Um, Oh, yeah, absolutely. So the property taxes, right? So saying $0, but in all reality, we know that the property taxes is probably somewhere around like $1,200 a year, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on who they are. So that's also going to take into account, like you have to be thinking about those different things, and they're going to hold 3 months worth of taxes as well, like in that escrow account. So in all reality, it has $0 in property taxes. It's not really zero. In all reality, there's another $1,200 that someone's having to come out of pocket and qualify for, and plus the bank's going to hold an additional 3 months in an escrow account. So they're going to hold $300-400, and property taxes goes up every year. And so any homeowners right now, like you get that every year. Uh, it feels like every year, and it feels like it's going up astronomical. And you guys have clients as well, that your clients reach out and say, hey, just want to let you know my property taxes went up again. And when property taxes go up, they give you a couple different ways. They say either send us money, or we're going to increase your monthly payment. And so that's this thing. So I only bring this up to say this: next year property taxes are going to go up. And so this monthly payment of $3,700 is actually going to go up higher again, because there's going to be a deficiency in their escrow account, because they don't have enough money in their for their property taxes. And so what's going to happen is that this number could go to like 38, maybe 30. God, I hope not 39, but on this price point of a house, but it could. And then so their monthly payment is going to go higher until they get the reserves of their escrow account hit again, and then their monthly payment will go back down. So I bring that up to say that, like, in all reality, these numbers, while they're fixed, they're not fixed because of this property tax right here. It's going up every year. So, guys, these are the conversations, like, as we're having it, we're being that real estate economist of choice, we're being that fiduciary, not a functionary. We're going to talk about that at Team Rally tomorrow. We need to be making sure that we understand this. Like, this is what's going through our home buyers and home sellers' minds right now. And again, $100,000 earner, right? And I think that's like, I mean, I saw an article that said most people making $100,000, they're still living paycheck to paycheck, and this is why, right? $3,700, 44,000 of that's going to housing. That leaves you $55,000 a year. You have a phone bill, you have your car bill, you have food and grocery, you have all these other things, and you're going to be eating through that $100,000 very, very quickly. Now, we do know this. When we talk about like the hedge against inflation, and this is what's interesting because we haven't had inflation like this in so very long, that these are the conversations that we've been having. But I want everyone to keep in mind that while I did talk about the property taxes going up, and they will, this is still your greatest hedge against inflation. And these are the conversations that we should be having. Like, this is, for the most part, this is a fixed cost. For the most part, $3,700, this will be your fixed cost. Your interest rates aren't going to go up. None of that's going to happen. Yes, property taxes will go up just because that's the world that we live in. But for the most part, like, this is how you control your money. And we do know that this is an appreciating asset. And so as we're going through and we're thinking about this thing, we know that historically speaking, 4% year over year, we're going to talk about this at Team Rally again tomorrow as well. We got some slides around this thing. But if we're looking at this is the conversations that we want to have. So if we're talking about 480,000, let's go 480,000. We talk about, historically speaking, 4% year over year. It's going to raise $19,000. Like, this asset, and this is a condo, so it's not going to really raise 4%. It's probably going to be closer to, like, let's call it 2%. Let's go 480,000 times 2%, which I could just divide it by 2, $9,600. So this asset is going to raise $9,600. Like, what else are you going to put in this kind of money to get this kind of return on? And again, it appreciates every year, and it's not straight line appreciation. It's based off of whatever the Indian appreciation is, right? So if the house appreciates $9,600 on $480,000, right? We're talking, this is a $489,600 home. And then the next year it appreciates, 2%. That's another 9,007, and it just keeps compounding over and over and over again. Kim, I saw you take yourself off mute.
Well, not only that, but you're getting able to have the write-off of your interest and your taxes, which each year is quite a bit.
Yes, it's getting more and more expensive. And like, I'm telling you, I have a buddy that sends me every year, he gets his property taxes, and he's like, hey, just want to let you know, like, it went up again. It went up again. And guys, it is a vicious cycle. And like, that's just the world that we live in. It's going to keep going up. It is. And so, yes, these are fixed cost minus this property tax, because the property tax is going to go up every year. And they're going to give you two options: send us a check, or we're just going to take more from you every month until we fill that discrepancy, because you don't have your 3 months at that point because your property taxes have gone up. So that, just keep that in mind. So I think that as we're going forward and we're just keeping and having the conversations, right? Let's circle back. More inventory. There's more inventory on the market. This is a good thing. This is a good thing for our buyers. And again, the buyers are being more discerning because of interest rates being what they are. We know that it's good news for buyers because we saw purchase application data go up. We're actually seeing it start to thaw out there because we're getting out of seasonality. And we're seeing people come to the realization that 5% interest rates are not around the corner. We're also seeing that the mortgage rates are going down a little bit because the Fed is not going through and having knee-jerk reactions to stuff like this, right? They're seeing inflation information going up, but they did not say that they're going to raise rates, which is huge. And that's been the issue that we've been seeing in the past, is that they see data go up and they say, all right, guys, well, if you keep spending, we're just going to keep raising the cost of money. They didn't do that this go around. So that doesn't mean that they can't do it Friday. But as we're going through, this isn't good news. But again, because Jerome Powell didn't come out and say, "Hey, we got to raise rates now because you guys are still spending money." This is good. Interest rates going down. This is also good. And so I'm probably having some conversations. My people that are on the fence, the people said that they were looking to buy, I'm going to say, "Hey, like, at what interest rate does it make sense for you to go pursue a house this year?" And guess what? They don't know the answer to that. And so then we're having conversations. You're saying, "Well, hey, this is the thing. We saw a big uptick this last week and purchase application data go up. A lot more people were, starting to thaw off. We saw some seasonality. They're getting more excited about the potential to go purchase a house. Would it make sense for me to introduce you to my lender? I know rates are going down. Let's just see what you qualify for." Right? Like, these are the conversations that we need to be having. Maybe I put a social media post around this as well. Right? We just need to make sure that we're educating. We need to entertain, we need to educate, and we need to go through, and we're being a fiduciary opposed to a functionary. And again, we just need to keep in mind, like, this is the reality that we're living in, right? We just need to know that all of our consumers, this is what they're thinking about. And again, it doesn't mean that they're not willing to buy a house. I think that's the biggest message that we need to keep in mind. While we do understand that this person could be spending $3,700 a month for a $480,000 house, that doesn't mean they're not going to buy. It just means it has to be the right house. So as we're going through and we're doing these needs analysis, and we're going through and we're having conversations, what's your motivation for buying? Like, why do you want to be a homeowner? What does that do for you? What does that do for your family? Like, after we figure out all these different things and we figure out like why they want to purchase a house, they might not have any problem spending $3,700 a month as long as it's the right home. And I think that's the biggest message that we need to keep in mind, that with everything being as expensive as it is, it doesn't mean people are stopped spending money. And we see that, right? I think that's the biggest thing, guys. People are not stopping spending money. That's why these numbers are going up. The CPI is going up because people are still spending. They just have to make sure that it's something that they want. And so as we're going through and we're doing these needs analysis, we're sitting at the dining room table with our consumers to figure out what is their motivating factors. And we're figuring out, we're doing the whole thing. Like, you're looking for a 2-bedroom, 3-bath, you need a space. Why do you need a backyard? Oh, it's for the dog. Awesome. Like, how important is that to you? Oh, it's very important. So then we find the 2-bedroom, 3-bath for the spot for the dog, and we reach out to them and we let them know, guys, this $3,700 becomes a non-issue anymore. Because we listened to them, we figured out what their motivating factor was. They knew what the cost of money was at that point. And if it checks all their boxes, they will move forward. And so that's our only job right now, is that we need to be going out and finding the motivated and finding what it is that is driving them to purchase a house, knowing all these data lines.